Oh, hi there, friends. Mandy here. Restorative grief is all about creating easy access to healing no matter where or who you are. That's why I want you to remember that if you want grief support beyond a podcast, my 31-day guidebook is available to order on Amazon. Embracing our losses without losing ourselves is a reflective journey into the holistic needs of grievers and learning to support yourself, mind, heart, body, and spirit. Don't just wing it. You can lean into grief work with a guide. The link for the book and more are available in the show notes, and as always, you can reach out with questions. But for now, let's get on to this week's episode. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 173, titled Food is Medicine, with Dr. Rosemarie Rutecki. When I got the call that my mom was dying, my first thought was food. How would I be able to prepare meals for my family while I flew off to say my goodbyes? In the face of my own loss, the first thing I knew was that I wanted my family to eat healthfully while I was away. And yet, after she died, what was the first meal I ate? Pizza. In today's conversation, my guest and I are unpacking what it looks like for a griever to consider food as medicine as an active part of our grieving and healing process. Dr. Rosemarie Rutecki is a functional medicine expert with a passion for uncovering the deep connections between trauma, gut health, and mental wellness. With her unique approach, she's helping people heal both mind and body by addressing the root causes of imbalance in our gut-brain axis. And I am so excited for you to hear this and start getting ready to make changes for yourself. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I'm Mandy, of course, and today I am so excited to bring you Dr. Rosemarie Rutecki. She is a functional medicine expert with a passion for uncovering the deep connections between trauma and our gut health and our mental wellness. And so her unique approach is something that resonated with me immediately when I heard about it, because we all know that grief is not just a mental space issue, it is not an emotional issue, it is a holistic process that affects us heart, mind, body, and spirit. So I'm very excited to hear about her insight and get a little advice for all of us to deal with our trauma and our gut health. Dr. Rosemary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Mandy, for having me here. I'm so excited to have a great conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start by just addressing the fact that your career really focuses on bridging that gap between functional medicine, which we could probably define, and trauma recovery, helping people recognize the impact on their gut health and their lives that can actually influence their emotional healing as well. So, can you just kind of give us a picture of what functional medicine means and take us back to what led you to explore this intersection?
Yes. Well, I study in the Institute of Functional Medicine, and there I learned the intricate connection between trauma, hormones, nutrition, adrenals, toxins, environment, gut health, right? So everything is connected. And when I studied pharmacy, that was before I studied functional medicine, the traditional model doesn't look into what you have experienced in the past. Like if you went through a traumatic event, if you're experiencing even problems in your work, in your relationship with your children, right? All those things could be impacting your health. And the traditional model mostly looks into, let me find a prescription, and then they send people home. And then when in reality, it could be something deeper. What might be causing their blood pressure? It's a relationship, right? Or their work, their gut issues. They're putting tons of medications, sometimes antibiotics, and it's something related also that happened in the past that they never work through it. And then all that stays in the gut because we have the gut brain connection too that is very strong. So the beauty of functional medicine is that it looks at the person as a whole, not just as an organ, right? Because we have so many specialists that you go to endocrinologists for your sugars, you go to the psychologist, you go to psychiatrist, or you go to the neurologist for your brain, right? So in functional medicine, we look at the whole person, their environment, what they're eating, the way that they're feeling, their past. And then from there, we develop a protocol to help them heal. And also, if we need to refer them to a specialist in that area, we do that.
That functional medicine approach changed my life when I was a teenager. I'll never forget going in at like 19 years old to a doctor, and I didn't know what functional medicine meant. I just went where I was referred and asking for help because I was beyond overwhelmed. And her response was, well, there are things that can be prescribed to you, but I really want to ask a better question about your sleep, your food, and your friends. And I remember thinking, wow, that was not what I expected, but it was exactly what I needed. Thank you. She was
Yes.
like, you can have a band aid, but you need to understand band aids get changed out. They don't remain. These are not lifelong. It was life altering. And to this day, that experience has been so transformational. And you said something in there that I wanted to ask you to define as well. Help us understand, what is the gut brain axis?
The gut brain axis is the connection between your gut and your brain. And we have tons of nerves from the brain to the gut. And we actually have more nerves going from the gut to the brain. So the brain and the gut are always talking and communicating. So that's what some people call your gut, your second brain. Because when we're stressed, we might feel in our gut like butterflies. Some people might experience loose bowel movements when they're very nervous, that they have to run to the bathroom, or they have this gut feeling when things are not right. We feel it in our gut. So that's our gut communicating to our brain. And we have tons of trillions of bacteria that live inside of us, and they're communicating, they're talking, they're digesting our food. They are also uh, very important in the way that we feel, because in our gut microbiome, in our gut, we make a lot of the good neurotransmitters that keep us happy, like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. And if we don't have enough of that good bacteria, if we're not feeding the good bacteria with good foods like fiber, fermented foods, we might feel sad, we might feel depressed. So imagine a world where you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and they ask you, how's your digestion? Are you going to the bathroom every day? Are you eating enough fiber? Are you drinking water? Right? Because when we keep that flora happy and growing, then we're going to feel great. And it also is connected with our immune system. So, not just with our brain. So, our gut microbiome, it's connected, I would say, with every organ and with every condition that we see these days, from autoimmune conditions, heart disease, diabetes, hormone imbalances, are connected to your gut microbiome.
I think that is such an well, it's fascinating and it's so misunderstood, right? Especially in grief work, I come into people's lives at the time when things are really, really traumatizing and heavy and hard. And one of the most difficult conversations I have to have with people is, how are you eating? Are you relying on comfort foods? What does that mean to you? And how could we shift it? Because a bag of Oreos might give me a big kick of dopamine for a minute and a tummy ache later. And I can't tell you how many times I've done something like that and thought, oh, a cup of coffee sounds great. And then hours later, I'm falling to pieces, not realizing, gosh, what did that do to my stomach? And I've had this experience before. How do we help people make that connection faster to what they're eating specifically, around this idea of comfort foods or even familiar or traditional foods that aren't necessarily helping them anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I tell to my clients is to be aware of their food choices, right? Because when you bring awareness of what you're doing, it will help you. Maybe that day you ate a bag of chips, but then you're aware of it. A lot of people are not even aware
Mhm.
that they are eating comfort foods that are highly processed, that not feeding the gut microbiome, and they do it when it's related to a stressful situation, or
Mhm.
they are handling trauma or grief, and that's how they connect the feelings with the food, right? And then that's the first step, just to be aware. What are you doing when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling depressed, or even when you're feeling happy? Because a lot of people, when they feel happy, they celebrate and then they destroy themselves with alcohol and tons of
Mhm.
processed foods. So it can go both ways. And then the other way that I tell my clients is like, you have to see food as medicine. The role of food is to feed us to be healthy. And I make the comparison, like, imagine that you're a Ferrari. You're buying an expensive car, and you're not going to put them regular gas, because you know the car is not going to stop working. And then you're going to have to spend a lot of money finding someone who fix the car. So we have to treat ourselves like our most expensive possession, even in times when we feel that everything is falling apart, because the stronger we are, the healthier we are, more vitality we have, the better we're going to be able to deal with the problems and situations that life throw at us. So in reality, sometimes people think that it's selfish to take care of themselves because we have been taught to give to others, put other people's feelings first, and then we just don't take care of ourselves. But if we do want to take care of others, and in the time that we need to be taking care of ourselves, if we're going through a very hard experience, that's the time when we have to nourish our body the most,
Yeah.
to eat the best that we can, right? The foods that we can afford, that we can find, because that's going to make us go through the process better.
I'm thinking a lot about that intersection for people, maybe millennial and Gen X's who were raised in diet culture, whose traumas are connected often to bodily experiences through diets and weight loss processes and weight gain processes and all of those um, additional grief events and traumas that are connected. How would you speak to the people who might be listening and thinking, oh God, I've got such a complicated relationship to food? Cost aside, because we can address accessibility and food costs. That's a whole nother conversation. But that internal resistance that says, how does adding one more layer of complication, food awareness or food planning even, make my grief process more light and more integrated and healthier?
The best thing I would say, someone that is going through a very hard situation and they have like issues with food or don't know where to start, is to increase eating things that are more healthier for you, right? So adding more color into your diet, so more fruits and veggies. So maybe you're still, and then don't buy the things that you know are not good for you, because if you don't have it at home, then you're not going to eat it.
A lot harder to eat it if it's not there. That's
Yeah.
so true. Yep.
And maybe if you go out with your friends and then you have like a little of something that you are, you know, might not be the best for you, but at least you're not eating it 100% of the time. Maybe it's like 20 or 10% of the time now because it's not accessible to you.
Yeah.
So that would be the first step for someone that is looking into ways to improve the way that they eat
Mhm.
when they were exposed to tons of processed foods and are connecting diet and different foods to the way that they feel. So it's rewiring our brain to think, okay, I am going through this situation and I know that for me to get over this faster, not over, but you know, to become stronger, with more resilient into the situation that is coming towards me, the happier my gut microbiome is, the more energy you have, the better you're going to feel, right? Because if you're eating junk food that doesn't feed your gut microbiome, the gut microbiome is very smart. They're like, okay, so I'm eating a lot of Cheetos and sodas, and there's no fiber here, there's no nutrients, there's no polyphenols. I'm still hungry.
Mhm.
So the microbiome sent a signal to the brain, keep eating, I'm hungry. Right. And so people that eat more processed foods, they eat more and more and more because the gut is hungry. Right. So
Yeah.
when we feed our gut, we feel satiated, we feel satisfied, and it's easier to feel healthier, right? More optimal. Because
Mhm.
if the food that you're eating doesn't have nutrients like your B vitamins and your minerals and all those stuff that food give us, then our cells are not going to work correctly. And then we're going to feel tired and fatigued, and our body is going to start hurting and we're going to be achy. So it's kind of like a big you know, like an explosion, right? Because they're like, you're dealing with your grief and your trauma, and then also your body is physically unwell and tired, so it's going to be harder for you to go through it.
Yeah. That fatigue, the brain fog and the unbelievable fatigue, even when you are eating well and you are grieving, is insurmountable at times. There were times that right after my mom died that I would just take 3 and 4 hour naps consistently throughout the week. I mean, a couple of times a week. And it just blew my mind as someone who has a lot of energy and I'm constantly on the go. I wasn't raised in a household that didn't understand the power of healthy food. My mom was a chef. So we had produce and colorful foods, and still the fatigue was wild. So I can imagine being able to later down the road, I will say my own energy came back quite a bit. But now, as to the point you made about awareness, I can tell when I have gotten off of those healthier food patterns, when I have moved away from bright colors toward the browns and the whites of food world. And it is overwhelming to think about the change that is necessary when you are patterned through whatever reason toward more processed foods or toward just dense carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates. And because of our schedules or whatever it is, what is a low barrier way that you would say to someone who maybe they are concerned about prep time, or maybe they're in a food desert where fresh vegetables aren't as readily available? To the person that's listening that says like, "Yeah, that sounds great, but I have more resistance." What's a low barrier way you would encourage them to start on this process?
To start eating healthier.
Yeah.
And I know it's tough when there's no resources
Yeah.
in your area to find the nutritional foods and veggies and fruits. And that's something that as a society, right, we got to work with our government and local and areas to bring more healthy foods for people. And some people will debate like those things are created with a purpose to keep people sick, right? We don't know what are the reasons why we're doing that, right? And because if we have food, but if all we have is processed food, why are we doing that to that specific population, right?
Yeah.
Because we're bringing stuff. We just have to bring more of the good things that they can eat, more access to fruit and vegetables. The same thing with schools, right? So if we want kids, now we have like the highest incidence of anxiety and depression in our children
Yeah.
because of the food that they're eating, right? Starting from eating highly processed foods, no fiber, no color. Of course, you're going to feel sad and depressed if your microbiome is hungry and your cells or your microbiome digest all that healthy food and pass it to your cells. So as a society, we really need to work on that so everybody have access to whole foods. And that's because if we have access to processed foods, why we can't have access to whole foods?
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to pretend that it's not the capitalist moneymakers who are keeping us um, unable to access things. And we're going to keep a hopeful thought process here, because that's where I want to stay around this idea of, let's say we've got people who now can access foods or even a single colorful fruit or vegetable a day. I think starting with one piece and frozen vegetables, right? They freeze them at the right time so that much of the nutritional value is maintained. What have you seen in your work with people who come to you and are ready to address, yep, I've got traumatic experiences in my life. Yes, I'm ready and I have access to make the change in how I'm eating. What does the process look like for those people? What do you see as the shift in their lives, short term and more long term, as they start making those changes?
Yeah, the shift is when they have tried it all and they go to tons of doctors and they're already ready. Right?
Yeah.
And the best thing when you start anything, or if you want someone to help you or to coach you, first thing is, and I ask my clients that I work with them, are you ready to commit to eating a certain way, to take a couple of supplements, to make your health a priority?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if the person is not ready to do the changes, then it's like become like the doctor is the bad person because you're like,
Yeah.
trying to get them to do something that they're not ready to do.
Yeah.
But there's always a place where we have to start. And one of the things that I have noticed of the people that are successful into their health transformation, even overcoming trauma and grief, it's the sense of self-love, how much they love themselves, right? Because if you don't feel deserving of health, of love, of abundance, of good things to happen to you, if you don't feel that you deserve that, it doesn't matter how much stuff or much money you throw into things if you don't feel that you deserve it. Right? The creator, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will not give you what you can't hold in terms of good stuff, right? Because you can be praying, oh, I want to get out of this, I want to feel better, I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. But if your inner container of receiving good stuff for you and knowing that you deserve it, it's small, right? You're not going to receive that. So if you have a really small cup of water and I want to give you a gallon of water, if you don't have space for it, you're not going to get all this, the good stuff that I want to give you. So that will be the first step for someone that is looking into improving any area of their lives, to expand that cup so they can receive more.
It's a really interesting metaphor. And I love that because I can picture someone coming to you or even to me with a very, very small cup that is very narrow and it's opening and saying, please, I need help. And our response is to say, I want to help you build that cup. I want to help you make it larger and more open to receiving the beauty of what is true for who you are and what not your potential. And I want to be careful there because people will say that and monetize it, right? Oh, you have such potential for growth and healing. And the truth is, yeah, of course, but that's not why you're deserving of it. You're deserving of it because you're deserving of it inherently, because you exist and you are important and you matter.
Yeah, we're all deserving of great things, right? I am very spiritual and I believe that the creator, God, the energy, whatever you want to call it, wants the best for us. And sometimes it throws, and I believe that what happened to us is meant to happen to grow from that, right? I think looking back, all the bad things probably that happened in general, they had a purpose and they helped me become the person that I am today, right? Those experiences, the good ones and the bad ones, the icky ones, the happy ones, all that, those combined made you the person that you are right now. And growing and expanding the cup to receive the good stuff that are available for us is the best first step.
Yeah, I love to say everything happens and it's our response to it that changes where it comes in and how it affects us and how we carry it. And that idea that trauma is a need going unmet over and over and over and creating a void where we should be able to feel seen, loved, known, heard. And suddenly we're not for whatever reason, whether someone else withholds that seeing of us or that love for us or withholds that care. Um, Teaches us a lesson about that person, but we don't understand that that's a lesson about them and their capacity to care for us. We instead make it a lesson about our worthiness and our availability and um, our desire to be seen has to get smaller in order to survive. And that ongoing trauma, I think people are aware of how it affects their body to some degree, but they don't necessarily know how to connect the dots and how to start noticing what is coming up. So I'm curious for you, and especially with this idea of connecting it to gut health, how would you encourage someone to start becoming aware? What are the things they're looking for when they become cognizant of their trauma, or maybe they're very aware of their trauma and their grief, but they don't understand that, hey, those headaches might be connected, the fatigue might be connected. How do you get them to start asking those questions very gently?
Well, the first thing is knowing that there's studies that out there that have already researched this so much, like the connection between trauma, non-resolved grief, and all those things in autoimmune disorders, in cardiovascular disease, in gut issues, in anxiety, depression. All those things are already well studied. So it's not coming from because I'm saying it, right? So people will
Yes.
be like, oh, my doctor told me, I don't know where she's getting that from.
Yes.
This is already studied. And if we talk about like mechanisms, so when we are going through a traumatic event, that increases the cortisol, right? So our adrenals go in this regulation, right? Like kind of like, okay, let me release a lot of cortisol because this person is going through a lot of stress. So the brain see that signal of like a lion is gonna eat her or him. We need to start releasing tons of cortisol, so she or he can run so fast, so fast, so fast to save their life. And when our um, nervous system is dysregulated, this cortisol continue to be released and released and released. And then what that does, that's going to impact our insulin levels. And then we become insulin resistant, and that can lead into diabetes. That excess cortisol and that excess insulin affects our thyroid. And then our thyroid becomes sluggish and slow, and our T3 levels starts to decrease. That's the active form of thyroid that keep us energetic and our weight in check. And then what happens, we become so tired, metabolically unfit, and then we start gaining even more weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then that issues with your thyroid and with your cortisol and your insulin are going to affect your sex hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll become having, especially with females, and we see that a lot in perimenopause, especially you have a female that hits their 40s and they're dealing with past traumas, they are dealing with teenagers, they're dealing with issues in their marriage that usually happen at the same time. It's like a ticking bomb that I call perimenopause. Menopause is like very hard for females because you're transitioning, your hormones are dropping like crazy. And then on top of that, you are having all these stressors. So going back into the what they do into your sex hormones. So cortisol, shares the same pathway as your sex hormones. So if you are producing cortisol to survive, your sex hormones are going to decrease. So you're going to lose your libido. You might have some period issues. You might have also weight gain and losing your hair and all the things that happen during that time. And we're also seeing a lot of issues with infertility, and so it's all connected. So a traumatic event will turn on a cascade of events, right? And then also high cortisol creates leaky gut. Leaky guts can turn all those toxins into your system, creating leaky brain. Leaky brain then causes brain fog because all those toxins are entering your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to educate people so they understand everything that a traumatic event, grief, trauma can do with your body when the nervous system is dysregulated and you're pumping cortisol all the time. But that's your body protecting you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
because the body is very wise. So the body wants a survival more than reproduction.
Yeah. I talk about nervous system stuff with people every single day, and getting someone to recognize what is soothing to your nervous system and allows that window of tolerance to open back up is wonderful, but it has to be very specific. It can't be, oh, well, what feels soothing is 17 hours of video games and isolating and eating potato chips. I'm like, well, no, that might be less stressful, but that's minimizing everything that you're going through and making your long term experience a lot harder to navigate. So I love that you brought that up. I'm curious, what foods would you encourage someone who is in a state of dysregulation and aware of it to be more soothing? What kind of foods would be considered a soothing help?
Soothing food. So if someone wants some comfort food, I will do like bone broth, like chicken soup. They're very soothing for your soul. And then when you're eating bone broth, you have a lot of glutamine on it. So that's really good for your gut microbiome, especially if you have leaky gut. The collagen, the protein, and then you add the vegetables. So it's a great way to start if you're looking for some comfort food. Uh, Beef roast or chicken roast. So those very comforting food that are very warm and healing are really good. I will add some fermented foods. I know people don't like it that much, but fermented foods have shown to decrease so many inflammatory markers and improve your mood and also your immune system. So I will add some of that. That could be kefir, that could be yogurt. If you want to be a little bit more adventurous, I would do kimchi and sauerkraut. At the beginning, it might taste like, oh my God, what is this? But they're really good for your gut microbiome. So healing your gut, feeding your gut, even if you're in a moment or a point in your life where you're like, I am suffering so much, I'm not even thinking about myself right now, and let alone eating healthy. But that's going to help us go through it better, right? Being stronger, because from every experience in life, my motto is I'm going to come from this stronger than ever. And in order to do that, I have to take care of myself, even though you might feel selfish for doing it. But when you take care of yourself, you're able to get through things better. So that's what I would do, like add more comfort foods and maybe smoothies. Maybe people want to do smoothies, teas,
Yeah.
like green tea is really good for your gut microbiome. They have tons of polyphenols. They make you feel more happy. So food is definitely, in this case, we have to think about food as medicine. It's going to help us heal, because a prescription medication has their place, especially when we're feeling that nothing else is working. It can get you out of the depression, but that's a band-aid, right? We also have to continue working on our health. So there's a point that's like, oh, my body doesn't need it. I was able to heal, and now I am thriving.
I think that point you just made, food as medicine, is so crucial because we're not ever saying medicine and pharmaceuticals aren't sometimes necessary. Sometimes they truly are,
Yep.
because the issues we're dealing with are so interwoven with one another. It's not just, oh, you have a scratch, here's some Neosporin and a Band-Aid. It's more complex. And so being able to honor the medicinal approach or the pharmaceutical approach while supplementing with the holistic, body-based, almost natural approach of like, hey, your body was designed to eat these foods, eat them. I have this vision of like a little chief engineer gut microbiome leader with a checkboard or like a checklist as food comes in. Oh, fantastic. Polyphenols, check, got it. There's some B12 for you guys. Party on, got it. Wait a minute, we have no vitamin C. Hey, send a message. We're still hungry. We're lacking vitamin C. And this idea of it being kind of playful and lighthearted feels approachable. It feels silly enough to say like, am I serving myself in the way that I would serve my children or my community or my family members that I'm caring for? Because we would not give them a box of macaroni and cheese and say, good luck every day for lunch day, you're going to eat mac and cheese. But we would do it to ourselves because of the convenience factor or the speed or the cost, when realistically, packaged food costs so much more than fresh produce. You just have to purchase it more often and process it yourself.
Yep.
Hmm.
I agree.
Yeah. Dr. Rosemary, there are so many people listening who are feeling some kind of way right now, whether that is resistant to everything we're saying or inspired by what we're saying and ready to dive in. Where can people find you and your work and learn more from you about how this process may actually affect and benefit their mental wellness as they start to explore what gut health means for them?
Thank you for asking. I'm in social media, Dr. Rosemarie Rutecki. And I'm also my website, drrosemaryrutecki.com, if they want to reach out and see my website or learn from all the posts that I do on social media. So the first step is to create awareness, and that's what we discuss.
Yeah.
The create awareness, and also we also talk about how much we value ourselves, expanding our cup so we can receive more, and being okay to putting ourselves first. And that's one of the biggest lessons that a lot of my clients learn during the process, is that they have forgotten themselves and they have given so much to others. And when they put themselves as a priority, they love themselves more than anything, then they become like, okay, I'm able to do all these things, improve my health, I have a sense of joy and being able to give to my family and my community now that I'm expanding myself and
Yeah.
I'm not working or coming from an empty cup.
Yeah. It's so much more than that phrase, put your own mask on first before you put the mask on someone else. This is a foundational, no, actually fuel yourself in a way that is intentional and caring and loving so that you can be intentional, caring, and loving with the people you are trying to serve and show up with in relationship. You can't show up half alive and expect your full contribution to be the meaningful thing you wanted.
Yep.
Oh. Dr. Rosemary, thank you so much. This has been just life-giving for me, a strong reminder that I think we're out of sauerkraut in the house and it's time to
Never
replenish.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I
yes.
love it. My grandmother on traveling, she would stop and buy a jar no matter where we were. And in the morning, she would just take a handful and put it right in her mouth. And we laughed so much as kids, but now as an adult, I'm like, wow, look at the example she gave us. And she always said, this is good for you. You need to do it. I think being able to say the fullness of why this is good for you is really helpful for, people like me who are absolutely stubborn and don't like being told what to do. Thank you for being here with me, Dr. Rosemary. This has been
Thank you,
such a
Mandy.
joy. I'm so grateful.
I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode 173 of Restorative Grief. In today's conversation, we dove deep into the incredible connection between gut health and trauma with Dr. Rosemary. Her journey from functional medicine into trauma recovery has shown how healing the body can open pathways to emotional recovery as well. Be sure to connect with Rosemary and learn more about her work by visiting her website at drrosemaryrutecki.com, and that, of course, will be in the show notes. If there's one takeaway from her story, it's the reminder that healing happens holistically. When we take care of the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit, we can find true restoration. If this is your first time listening to the show, thank you for joining me. I hope you're inspired to grab something fresh and colorful to eat right now. I know I snagged a fresh apple right after recording. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a review if you found this helpful. This podcast needs more people like you spreading the word and helping others gain access to healthy and helpful information like this. And as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution to grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.